Well, we can't talk about feeder fishing without talking about feeders. It's something that it's become a bit of a fine art now. Obviously, there are so many different styles on the market. The great thing we've got these days is that a lot of these products now have been designed by anglers and designers as well, and just by looking at the design of the feeder can give you some great hints and tips as regards what that feeder is designed for. The selection that I use on the wide variety of venues that I fish, I obviously carry some of each style with me because you never know what situation you're going to be faced with. Now, there are different ones, we can categorise them, but in feeder fishing we often find there are certain scenarios where we might be feeding more ground bait, we might be feeding more particles, we might be faced with shallow water, we might be faced with deep water, and that is why we carry all these different designs of feeders. The first style that I'll really cover is the style that is designed for introducing particles. Now these are the feeders that we use more obviously in summer when we're giving the fish more feed. When they're feeding more, we want to give them more feed. One of the first designs is the dome feeder. Now this is something that is ideally suited on still waters, but it's got some fantastic applications on moving water as well. The design of it is basically, it's a basket. It's designed like a basket of food. It can hold lots and lots of particles in there, and all you do is just cap the top end with ground bait, and that is it. That is designed obviously then with the holes in it as well to empty quickly, and that is the style of feeder that you'd use if you wanted to give the fish lots of feed. It's a great sort of feeder for getting down to the bottom in deep water. If you want to be 100% sure that your feeder is getting to the bottom intact and all the feed is emptying on the bottom, then that is a great feeder for that sort of fishing. And that obviously is why it's very, very good on moving water as well. If you want to make sure your feeder's getting emptied right on the bottom, then that is a great feeder for that. It's got a lead on the side, again suited for still waters and rivers. Superb feeder for that. Again, in the same category, another feeder that's designed for introducing particles and feed is the bell feeder. These haven't been around quite as long as the dome feeders, but again they're designed with the same sort of principle in mind. It's designed for introducing lots of particles, doesn't matter what it is, it could be chopworm, maggots, casters, whatever, hemp. And this one again is one that you just cap off at the bottom. But as you can tell, the difference is quite significant as regards the design. The bell is a great feeder for casting into the wind if the wind's bad, or going that extra little bit of distance because of the design of it. It's so streamlined, and again it can be used on rivers, but it's more suited to still waters. But again, it can be very, very good for when you're speed fishing because it's so quick and easy and simple to load. You can be straight out, and obviously because the design, the ground bait is designed to empty at the back of the feeder. When you move the rod, or if you hook a fish, it empties quickly, ready for your next cast. The other design of feeder that we use on lots and lots of different waters is a cage feeder, probably the most commonly used. There are two real different designs of cage feeder. The main style that I use on still waters is the one with the lead on the side. We use these all the time, and they come in various different sizes. The reason why these are so good, especially on shallower waters, is because the wire mesh that these are designed and built and made with is so fine that it allows water immediate access to your ground bait, and that's why these can be so good in shallower water because they empty quickly. And that's an issue that you also need to think about when you're catching lots of fish as well, especially quickly, because what can happen is if you're hooking fish straight after the cast, you want to make sure that your feeder is actually emptying where you've hooked the fish. Sometimes if you're using a feeder where the water can't get to it and you're hooking fish straight away, the feeder can actually be emptying whilst you're playing that fish and reeling it back towards you. And obviously that's spreading bait all over your swim, and you want to avoid that if you possibly can. So that's a great feeder if you want your ground bait to break down quickly and empty from the feeder really, really quickly. The other design of cage feeder is one that's designed for fishing at range. Now there are two styles of distance feeders in our range. This is obviously the wire version, this is the Horizon, and again it's very, very good for giving water access to your ground bait. Great for shallow water, but obviously the design is very different. The design tells you exactly what it's designed for, and that's for casting at range or for cutting into the wind. If you've got a strong side wind, these feeders aren't always about Certainly the lighter versions, because these you can get these in 20 gram and 30 gram, which obviously aren't designed for casting a long way, but they're designed for cutting into the wind. Certainly on some wide open venues the wind can be a problem, and obviously it will hinder your accuracy, so that's an ideal feeder for that sort of scenario. The latest version of that style feeder is the Horizon feeder again, but it's a plastic version. Again, you can see the design of it. It's designed for cutting into the wind and giving that extra little bit of range and accuracy. But because it's not wire, it's made with plastic, that is reducing the access that the water can get to the ground bait. So that means that's going to give you a slower breakdown of the ground bait, and it means that the feeder will empty slower than it will the metal version. The key applications of that are if you're waiting longer for bites, for example. You might not want the ground bait to empty straight away. You might want it to break down slower. And it also means, because it breaks down slower, you can pack ground bait in that a little bit tighter than you can the wire mesh. And that means if you're fishing at range or in a bad wind, but it's that little bit deeper and you want to be more reassured that your ground bait is going to be emptying on the bottom, then this could be the feeder for that situation, because it's just going to help hold that ground bait in there long enough so that it's going to get down onto the bottom. And whilst we're on the subject of deeper water, we've got a range of plastic feeders. This is only a small one, it's 15 gram. I thought I'd show you the small one. 15 gram, as you can see, it's your typical or traditional open end feeder. They've really surprised me whenever I use these, purely because they are surprisingly aerodynamic, because of the rounded edges to the weight on the bottom, and because of the rounded top. They cast really accurately, really nice. They can cut through the wind, but because they are obviously plastic, they're solid. That again means that you're not giving water direct access to the ground bait. So these are ideal in deeper water. If you want to make sure that the ground bait and the feeder is going to empty on the bottom, they're ideal for that. The other aspect that I like about this style feeder as well is that the lead on the bottom, the weight on the bottom, is quite wide. It's got quite a wide surface area, and that means it's perfect for fishing on softer bottom lake beds or reservoirs, where some of the feeders with a narrower lead on them are going to sink into the bottom. This is far more inclined to sit on the soft bottom, which means obviously your presentation is better. It means the ground bait is releasing right on the surface of the lake bed and not in it, and it means if you do want to move the feeder for any sort of reason, like trying to induce a bite or whatever, it moves across the surface of the lake bed really easy. And it's got it's like a ripple effect on it, and that is good as well if you're casting up to islands where you're on a steep slope. That encourages it to help grip that slope and stop the feeder coming back down towards you. You don't need to carry a mass array of feeders, as long as you've got a few to cover each job. And in a nice little compact box like this is, you've got a nice range in there that you can take with you onto a wide variety of venues.